Hi everyone. So let me do a quick recap on what we have been doing so far. So what I did till last video was I completed this GET request. All the test cases, 6 test cases I have completed here. It was up and running. Then I also automated the post request. So post request I only did one request there in the till the last video, and then what I did, I automated few more, like four more test cases here, and I have pushed in the code into the our GitHub library, GitHub repository. Again, a quick recap from where I'm writing these test cases. So if you remember, I already had a video on how I created these scenarios first and tested them first in the Postman. So this is where all these test cases are. So this all the 6 get test cases and 5 post test cases, then 3 put, 1 patch, 1 option, 1 delete test cases. In total, there are 19 test cases. So far, I am done with all the get and all the post test cases. And maybe till last video, I did not cover how did I create these, but I only covered till the first test case of this post. So maybe in this video, I'll do a quick walkthrough of how did I automated these, what were the necessary steps I did, and then we'll start automating put and patch and delete test cases. However, I have written their feature files, but their step defs are yet to be written. So maybe I'll go back to my post request.feature, and from here I'll start explaining how did I write these definitions for these. And if you remember, I explained one more concept of passing the state, and I promised that I'm going to talk about dependency injection in the next video. But before I start with dependency injection, why not just complete all these feature files with the basic funda and not jump into the DI as as of now. And once we are done with all these test cases, then we'll switch to dependency injection concept. So maybe again a small recap on how did we do that state sharing. So if I go back here, if you can notice, so this is get request. So in that get request, I have a given statement, go REST API is up and running. And if I go here also I have a given statement, go REST API is up and running, right? So that means I'm trying to reuse this definition of this step into the post request step def. So if you notice, the go REST API is up and running is present inside get request step def, and inside this post request I am reusing it. So I am basically reusing this request specification object, which is being actually set here. So why we need this state sharing? Because there's an object which is being set here or being initialized here, and whose value is what we are trying to access in the next class. And we just cannot directly do it. So we need to do two things. First thing I did is I moved this request specification and response object specification, request specification object and response object inside the test base. Once I do that, it will be accessible to all the classes, which is which I'm making child of this test base. And next thing I did is I made it static. The moment I made it static, the state of the object will be shared. So for example, if this is being set here in request specification inside get request step defs class, once it is initialized here, and since this is marked as static in the test base, the value of this request specification object will be retained as if I want to reuse this in separate class, the state of that will be still remain. So this is the reason why I made this static, and that's the reason I made this inside test space. But if you also remember in the last video we discussed this is not a good approach, because the moment you make something static, it is very difficult to implement the parallel execution concept there, because the moment you make something static, it can be changed by different threads, right? So that is the reason we should not be using this approach, and this also makes our code brittle. So it's the best way to do this kind of state sharing implementation is using DI, that is dependency injection. And for the dependency injection is for the same, we have added here a class dependency here called as Cucumber Pico container. So this is a dependency which you need if you wish to do a dependency injection or wish to implement a dependency injection concept. Now, how this concept works, again, I'm going to defer it for now, because I want to complete all the test cases first, and then later we kind of will implement DI in here so that it takes effect, because after that we'll try to run this in parallel as well. Right. So now let's talk about today's agenda, that is the post request which I've created and the new test case in new step dev which I have to create for put and delete and options and patch. So let me go back to post request. If you remember, I created this first test case. Now for the next subsequent test cases, they all are actually negative test cases. So if I go here, if you see, this was a positive test case, but in the all the subsequent test case was all about messing with the API. That is uh, sending empty body, body has all fields but no value. So I'm in this case I'm trying to create an entity where we have no content in the variables, mandatory fields. Then if you see here, I'm sending wrong email and wrong gender. Right, so few negative test cases. In this test case, I think I am again doing something weird, which is all fields but incorrect data types. So in this case, I have changed the type as well. In the previous test case, if you notice, I am sending everything in double quote, which is the usual standard for this API. But in this case, I'm not sending it in double quotes. I'm sending integers here and boolean here, right? And integer here. So the API should return me that this should be string, this is email address, etc., etc. So I need to validate all that. It's not that for post request these are the test cases which are enough. I can still write few more test cases or negative test cases to validate the post request, for example. And for the positive test case, if you notice here, uh, in the positive test case, I'm only sending, okay, this is wrong. Wait a minute, let me see what I'm sending in the post test case. Right, so in the post test case, I am only sending 4 or 5 values, not all. So I'm only sending gender, last name, first name, and email. So I think I have somehow removed that from here. But this is what I'm sending. I'm sending complete list of all the values. So maybe I'll copy it from here. Wait, otherwise it will be left. So last name is something, first name is something, for example. Email is something @something.com, and gender is, let's say, male. And if I do a send here, so it's going to create me an entity. But if you notice, I'm only sending the mandatory fields. I'm not sending phone, website address. So I'm supposed to test that as well while creating. So this is the minimum what is required. And I can also create a test case, which is a positive test case, where I'm sending all the fields and validate whether all the fields are being correctly displayed or returned by the API. So that I have actually skipped because we don't want to overwhelm these sessions. So all I have to restrict myself to these 19 test cases, but you can write way more. That's the whole point I'm trying to make. Right, so there's no limit to test cases. Of course there has to be limit, but I think for all, instead of 19 to validate this API, I can write at least 100 or 200 test cases which validates all aspects of the API. Trying different various weird things with the API can be a valid test case for you. Okay, so now I'll go back. Maybe let me explain what I'm doing. So this is a negative test case. This is a positive test case. This is a negative one. So positive test case, if you notice, Core REST API is up and running when I set the header and body to the create new user, because I need to set header and body as well for the post request. So here I'm setting the header as well as the body. So this is the body string, this is the header string, and request specification object, which is defined at the top inside test base. If you notice, request specification has been defined here, not initialized of course, but defined here. And if I go here, and if you notice that request specification, I'm setting the headers which is present here and the body. This is a correct body I'm sending here, as well as if you notice, I have written a statement called a scenario.write. It is coming from here. This is, I have explained this in previous video. I'll try to do that again. This is a native dependency injection concept of Cucumber. This scenario is an interface defined inside Cucumber class. It has 3 purposes. One is it allows writing text in the report. It allows embedding of the screenshot, and it also does, we can validate the state of your step. So for example, the status of your, if that step is a pass, that step is a fail, or scenario is a pass, not really step, sorry, the scenario is pass or fail. It can also determine that at runtime for you to be able to do something with that outcome. But we'll use it, we're right now using it only for the scenario.write. Right, and this can only be injected when you are using a before tag. So before is also called as hook. This before is, if you can see here, this is present inside the Cucumber API. So this is not JUnit before, this is Cucumber before, and this is what In Cucumber we have this which executes before each and every scenario. So as soon as a scenario executes, it will execute before hook first, and then you can also have an option for after hook. So after scenario is executed, you can run that after hook. So these are called as hooks, which is used for before and after of specific scenario. And here I am using this for only writing of the log, nothing else. So scenario.write body sentence body string. I am printing it because I wanted to tell the reviewer, the person who is seeing the report, exhibition report, to know what kind of body I sent with this request. So these kind of information has to be logged properly in the report. That's the reason I'm doing it. So here request specification is headers and body. This is set. And if you also notice this request specification, before I go again, I want to reiterate this point again and again, that given is not present inside post request step dev. It is present inside get request step dev. And first of all, this request specification was first initialized here with the authentication and the base URI. And the next statement, which was this, when I set header and body, this was present inside the post request step definition. So that request specification, which was set in the previous step, carried the state with it in this class. And then on top of it, I am applying headers and body. So this already has given dot server dot authentication, and after on top of it, I'm also adding a header and a body in it, right? This after that state is being shared. So request specification already contains that, and top of it I'm using this. That is the point I'm trying to reiterate again and again, because this is the fundamental concept of in Cucumber, where you have to share the states in TestNG, in JUnit frameworks. I mean, this is not a big problem there, because you have everything, all the control you have is in the class files, and you really don't have to worry too much about it there. But in this case, since things can be in different class files, and this passing of the object is important, so this is very important to understand how would you share the state. Right now, as I said again, I said this already, that we are using static object, which we are going to replace soon enough with the DI. Now, if I go back to my feature file, when I hit the API with post request and endpoint as this, if you come here, now this is a response object which I'm setting the request specification. As I said, state retained. On top of it, I'm using when and post, and endpoint I'm taking from outside. As you see here, this is parameterized step dev. It will come here. And again, I'm printing that statement because I need to report this in the logs, irrespective of what post returns, pass or fail, success or failure. I need to mention this inside my inside my reports, right? Now, let me go back again to the next statement, which is API created a new user in the system. So if you notice, for post, we need to validate this. As soon as I create an entity, I need to validate whether the new user is created. And then I'm going to hit the server again to validate the get part of that. If I hit that user ID, new user ID with the get request, I should receive all the relevant information. So if I go here, in this case, I'm getting this, isn't it? So I'm getting all these values that when the response is returned, it is validating it everything here inside these assert that statements. And then I'm again hitting the API, and after hitting, I'm validating whether the same value which I set here there is also being displayed after I do a get. And if you notice, I am printing it as well again. Okay, so here I am doing a separate get request. I'm hitting the server and receiving the response. Right, just one important point here which I haven't done in this specific case, that is the entity which I'm creating is actually the name, first name, and the last name. All these things I am kind of hard coding in this case. Only the email is something which is I'm generating every time from here. So get random string. Everything is right now hard coded, but I have the option to change it as well. So I can create new variables here at the top, and every time I run the test case, the new email, new random username, names, new random email, the last name will be generated, and they will be replaced here. Right now it's hard coded, which is again not a very good thing, but yeah, just for an idea, I have just used email. Same the way I'm using email here, the same way you can do these things as well. Right, so that's how I completed the positive case. Now all the negative test cases are quite simple. So I'll tell you just in a very quick way. Only one of them I will explain. Rest of all the other are actually based on the same model. So here I am again doing the same thing, up and running. I set header and header, but without any body. So if you notice, all the given parts which I have given parts which I have created are different. So when I say I set header but without any body, if I go here, you'll see a header, but there's no body in it. So previously, when it was a positive test case, I was using request specification, headers as well as body. But in this case, I'm not using any body. I'm using only header because that's what my test case dictates. My test case, what I want to test is that post request to validate error message when no body is sent. This is very clear in terms of what I've written here. I want to test something. I want to test the post request when I send nothing. So for me, the right validation points or the right outcome from API should be that it should say 422 error and it should display these messages. So if you notice, error message displayed as is what I have reused everywhere, right? So every time I'm doing something, for example, in this case, I'm doing when I set header without any body, but in this case, I'm saying I set header with body with fields but no values. But in this case, I set header and body with incorrect email and gender. So every time I'm doing something weird, I'm expecting some specific error messages, and that's what I'm validating. So these three statements are actually everywhere. Wherever I'm expecting that error message, I'm getting that. And error messages are different. I think in these cases, they are coming as same, even though I'm doing some without any body and some wrong fields values, empty values. Both the time error messages are coming same. But for others, different error messages are coming. In this case, it's different because in this case, I'm hitting the body with incorrect data types for every mandatory field. Right. So if I go here in the error code as 422, you notice response.then.assert that body metacode.code, which is coming from, let me show you that if you forgot. This is what I'm checking, meta code 200. So if I go here and this test case is about incorrect data types, I do a send. So I'm getting this. So meta.code should be 422, right? This is what I'm doing. This response object .then.assert that .body meta.code equal to status code, which I'm sending from outside, which is 422. So meta.code will return 422 from the return JSON, and it will be validated. And if it's not matching, it will fail else pass. That's one way of putting a validation point or a checkpoint, right? Another way of doing it is what I've written here. So error message displayed as email cannot be blank. If I go inside this, then you can notice I'm not using this kind of thing. I'm not using response.then assert that. I can do it, but right now I'm choosing not to do it because all I care about is that this statement, which is gender must be a string, is actually appearing in my response body. So all I'm interested in checking the contains part of it. Is it right way? Not really. I mean, we can really do very specific. We can also check the specific location that, for example, we can say result dot array of 0 dot message should be gender must be string, or we can say result dot message result 1 dot message. That means the result, the second element of the array dot message is email not valid. We can do that, but right now, just for some idea on how can we validate few simple things, is by this. So here what I did body as string, I created a variable, and then I did response, and then I applied as string in it. Why? Because when I do response dot as string, it returns everything which you see here as a string format. And inside the string format, I can actually check the contains part of it. So I can say assert true. Now this is a JUnit annotation, JUnit assertion method I've used here. So you see I am using combination of two different kind of checkpoints. One checkpoint which is implicit available within the rest assured library in this format, where I am using then dot assert that, and this is how the rest assured, which uses Hamcrest for the checking or doing the validations. Now second way of doing it is I don't have to all the time necessarily use this. I can also write my own assertions. So in this case I am using JUnit assertion to validate something. In this case I am doing assert true body as string dot contains message. So body as string, if this contains the message which I am passing from outside, which is this. So this is being passed for this particular step. So when this is being passed and this is contained, which this contains inside this body a string, it will return me a true. And if it returning me a true, it matches with the assert true and it will pass. This is the text which you write here for error message, or I can write validation failed. This is only printed when something fails. When this is not matching, if it fails, it will print this in the report. That's the only purpose which for which we are using it. We have this segment. Otherwise, it's no importance. All matters is assert true. That means we are expecting something to be true coming out of it. This will only return true if this is being found inside this. If not, then it will false, and the test case will fail. Right. So this was about post test cases.